Hi, I'm Grady.
And I'm Zach.
And I'm Charisse.
And welcome to Highlights, a show where we recap something like it's sports, even though it's not. This season, we are looking at the fourth season of Dragula and all of its spooky glory. And just when I think we've had the most dramatic episode we could possibly have on this show, it somehow tops itself. And so, boy, do we have a lot to talk about today. Previously on Dragula. Last week's episode was Ghostship Glamour, a challenge where the competitors were tasked with creating a glamorous look and lip-syncing a performance to the Boulet brothers' new song, Wicked Love. Okay, so this week's cinematic opening tied to the Extermination involves beachfront sea monsters that the Boulets have dressed up as, and a giant seashell of some sorts that seems to lure beachgoers into summoning them until they drag them into a watery ocean grave. And I'll be honest, this was not my favorite cinematic opening of the season.
It wasn't mine either. And they were supposed to drag the willing participants to eternal happiness by choice. Like you could choose to be dragged to, or choose eternal happiness, but you could never leave again.
Yeah, this one seemed really lackluster. My favorite part was when you finally see the Boulets, and then the rest was just, it's like, when are we going to get there? It was really long.
I loved how they look. It's definitely, I think, the most actual, like, horrifyingly scary kind of look I've seen on them. And it seemed like a really long transition. Like, not a lot happened, but it took a while to get to those opening credits. And I just felt like, not much happened. But that was just me.
Yeah, it was definitely really drawn out.
Okay, so band Zenith, right? The winning band from the Monsters of Rock Challenge enter the boudoir and are wondering about who of the team gets eliminated and are sharing their thoughts about whose fault it was for that team falling apart, blah, blah, blah. And the first person to walk back in from surviving Extermination is Jade Jolie, who's about to win the competition, to be honest with you. And immediately, not only do they react to her returning, but Jade begins sharing her thoughts on the Extermination, who she shocked the most and why, and everything therein. And so it's just extra juicy right out the gate. And we get an extra clip that we didn't get from last week's Extermination, where she mentions, as Betty's literally sitting right next to her, talking to her or like looking at her, why she's going to shock Betty the most. And I think that was hilarious.
Well, what's so fantastic is the Boulets said they were going to go to group therapy, and they did.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I love that they had to discuss it. And I love, like, right before they start shocking each other, they talk about like what went wrong, so they're all pissed off. Oh, it's so great. And I love the way she's like, I'm going to shock Betty because, and she like flips her hair, and it's just, oh, Jade's adorable. She's an icon. And then as she's ripping into Betty shows up. Nobody seems to care less, especially not Hoso Toma, who's in the middle of reading her magazine. Betty begins immediately defending Mary Cherry and talking about how Sigourney should have been the one to be exterminated. And Jade immediately begins defending her, and the group immediately begins to divide. And just as that is happening, Sigourney shows up. Oh, she looks so cute here. Look at her. And then chaos continues to ensue. So then we have what is essentially two different sides of the spectrum. You are either team Mary Cherry or you are team Sigourney Beaver. And Zavaleta, even though she was on team Zenith, which seemed to all be team Sigourney, has now switched sides, given that Betty needs the backup without Mary Cherry.
I truly hate it that Bitter Betty said that personality will take you further in this business. It's not personality, it's charisma. You can teach someone how to apply makeup. You can get them a stylist if they have bad taste. There's all kinds of other things you can do, but you can't teach someone charisma. You can't teach someone how to own a room.
I did find it interesting. Bitter Betty listed off a ton of reasons why she felt like Mary Cherry should be there and Sigourney should not. And it all came around to Sigourney Beaver not being able to take control of the team, which may be a valid point. But she kept talking about how Mary Cherry is, you know, the realist, and she's this and she's that, none of which seemed to be about how she actually performed in the competition or the challenge.
Nobody gave Sigourney the chance to lead. Like, Mary Cherry swears up and down she was confused that the group even had a leader for half the day. And then as soon as the group challenge started, Mary Cherry took Jade off to go talk about some things. And then when she came back, she was telling Bitter Betty how to play the drums. And Mary Cherry definitely thought that she was in charge and that she was just going to be a leader because there wasn't one. And like the whole dynamic of the group was off.
Yeah, it seemed that she was most confused by the notion that she wasn't the leader for what seemed like once in her life. She didn't put herself as the leader and no one else ran along with it.
But Sigourney definitely counterpoints, as does her defense team, that if, you know, Mary is truly this legendary icon that she's been spouting, you know, about how, you know, she's the creator of Brooklyn Drag or whatever she thinks she is, that maybe she should have brought everything she needed for the challenge. Maybe she shouldn't have gone out there in slippers. Maybe she shouldn't have done and made all these choices that ultimately are the real reasons she ended up for extermination. And it's not anybody else's fault but hers. But for some reason, Bitter Betty and La Zavaleta especially just can't take that. And they never really resolve it.
This is also a trend with La Zavaleta previously in the season, when encountered with personal accountability for why they ended up in the bottom. It didn't work for her either. So forcing someone else to have personal accountability probably didn't sit well with her, because it doesn't sit well with her own challenges.
So Betty, you know, Betty has a real hard time with this, and she feels it's time to bring out Petty Betty, which the editors began changing her name in the confessionals. And I will say she has officially changed it to this on Twitter as well. However, I will say that throughout the entire episode, I don't think she ever actually follows through on this name. She's like, it's time for Petty Betty, but then she doesn't really do anything. So I don't know what the point was. I was expecting like, oh, she's going to drop some bombshells like she was trying to drop on Twitter. She's going to, you know, reveal all this stuff on camera about what really would happen and expose Jade and all this stuff. And she didn't do it, which leads me to believe that there was probably nothing to expose.
Yeah, it's like she said that and was like, oh, I actually have to have stuff to back that up. Well, never mind then.
Yeah. And it's very interesting because as they're talking about the situation, and we talked about this as we watched it, the Twitter rant that Mary and Betty kind of unleashed about how Sigourney and Jade were planning on playing victim on camera to make the other two look bad and all of this stuff didn't seem to match what they said here. And in fact, it seemed to be very much the opposite. And I found that to be very interesting and very telling, because the receipts don't match what they put out on their tweets.
Yeah, projection is the hell of a thing.
Mm-hmm. So this week they actually have what's called a Fright Feet challenge, which is Dragula's version of the mini challenge. They don't do them every episode, but they did have one this week, which was to find the key of life and death, which appeared in season 3 and now looks like it might be a Dragula tradition, and I hope it is. But they spend forever trying to find this key. Looking high and low, as you can see. And what cracks me up is they show Bitter Betty searching this particular table, and she's feeling all around it, underneath it, under the legs, you know, not with super, you know, intent, but she is searching it, and I don't know how she missed it. But seconds later, Jade locates the key at said table. So Betty could have easily saved herself if she had just looked a little harder for this key. But Jade, on a mission, gets down on the floor. She's rolling around.
Isn't that very telling, though, of like Betty's entire performance in the competition? If she had just pushed herself a little freaking harder, she'd been a lot better.
You know, as I'm getting the pieces about Bitter Betty, and I'm kind of like, putting this all together, I get a vibe that she's more here for the exposure than to actually win the competition. Because the fact that she apparently didn't even do Monster Drag until the pandemic and just decided to do it because she was bored or whatever. I just get a vibe that maybe she happened to see the casting call, thought, why not? Ended up on the show. And I feel like she knows somehow she's not going to win, because sometimes I just don't see her like that desperate for it.
I feel like Mary Cherry was the same way.
Yeah.
If you are the founder of Brooklyn Drag, then be the founder of Brooklyn Drag. Good grief.
So Jade gets the key. She has the ability to either save herself or put somebody else, Betty, which is what everybody's anticipating. I don't think anybody was worried about it except for Betty. And, you know, she has some time to think about what she's going to do. Then, as they're working on their challenge, Betty decides that it would be a smart move then to then take Zavaleta into the cauldron and talk about Jade, which I don't understand. Well, I'm sure producers were like, hey, why don't you guys walk over there and like, but.
Do you want to go talk about her?
This is what I saw as her being petty Betty.
So it's time for them to get in their Ghostship Glamour and actually perform the song. They didn't really highlight everybody one-on-one. They just kind of, you know, showed the overall collective lip sync performance everybody performed. But real briefly, let's go through them. So first there's Zavaleta, who is here looking like she's having some sort of cramping situation, and was caught in a bunch of seaweed, maybe. I don't really know. No, I didn't hate what she had on, but I didn't necessarily hate how she performed it. I didn't necessarily feel like she cared about the song per se, if that makes sense, or translating the song into the performance or the outfit.
Yeah, that connection wasn't there.
And I also feel like if I didn't know what challenge she was doing, I wouldn't necessarily tie this to like a ghost ship or an ocean situation. It was meh.
That's exactly what I wrote down. Meh look, meh performance. It was supposed to be a John Galliano inspired dress. I don't see John Galliano anywhere.
It's interesting because I feel like, and you know, we'll get to the scoreboard in a second, but Zavaleta, I feel like she's very hit or miss. When she's on it, she is on it. But when she misses it, she really misses it. Dahli's, I really loved.
I'm going as a damn boat.
Yeah, I thought it was super fun.
I liked it. I just didn't see a lot of glamour except for in her face, maybe, or in their face, makeup wise. And then also a little bit in the shirt. Like they needed a little bit more glamour in the rest of it.
I think once again, like, they had a fully realized idea and conceptualized it perfectly on the runway. It just, like Sheree said, it didn't read glamour, which is what the prompt was. But otherwise, this was a really, really cool look. I really thought this was out of the box and really cool.
Bitter Betty. I really love how she looked. I didn't love how she performed. She had a lot of issues.
The look itself is probably my favorite look out of anything that she's done so far this season. Beautiful, breathtaking, loved it.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Performance was just like whatever though.
Which is funny because it's like the opposite of her Western look, where her performance was everything, but her look was like meh. And in this one, it's like her look is like whoa, and then her performance was very underwhelming.
Who doesn't practice with their props? Who doesn't?
Right.
At least one time.
Speaking of things I don't understand, Hoso Terra Toma. I appreciate that she wanted to do something out of the box, which is very Hoso, but this was such a miss to me.
The only part of the assignment that she hit was the ship part, and that it was supposed to be out in the water somewhere, but like everything else was really disappointed and underwhelmed with what she brought to the table.
Yeah, I understand that she felt glamorous and she felt that her look was glamour to her, but this was definitely one of the situations where, you know, they give that prompt before every critique. This isn't to judge your drag, it's how your drag delivered on this this prompt and what we were looking for and what we asked for, and this really didn't deliver.
So she's in the workroom. She's like, people think this is such a glamour challenge. And I'm like, no, people don't just think that. The Boulet brothers said it, right? Like, it's one of the pillars of Dragula. If everyone's going to jump down Sigourney's freaking throat for not doing horror, for not doing filth, I'm sorry, Hoso, you should have jumped on board the ship and done some freaking glamour.
I like what you did there. Yeah, and it's crazy to me because literally the last episode, her Monsters of Rock look, she said she adjusted because she was worried it wouldn't read as Western enough and it would put her in the bottom. And I'm like, maybe you should have done that here. I don't. It's weird to change your mind.
Challenge. I'm going to do my most creature-esque floor show yet, because that's what glamour means.
I really didn't like her reaction to being critiqued over it either, to be quite honest with you.
That was probably the worst part of it, was her inability to take the critique and just completely melt down. It was almost like Astrid level.
Yeah.
I was wondering why her and Astrid got along, and that answered my question a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Sigourney Beaver. I love this. It almost read very Siren to me, like, you know, she was luring people to her and she had made her dress out of sails from ships she had taken in. You know, I painted this own story in my head several times for her, and I like that it made me want to do that.
Yeah, it definitely felt like she didn't try to overthink it. Like, she took what the prompt was, listened to the song, connected with it, and completely played into her element. Like, we definitely know she can do glamour like the back of her hand, and played to her strengths and just really emphasized what the challenge was, and absolutely floored it.
Oh, for sure. So at the beginning in the workroom, she was super excited to have another performance challenge, number one, and then also to have it be a solo performance challenge because she loves performing. So you can see that in her performance. It exudes, I am here to perform for you. Watch me. I'm here.
Saints, I'll agree about the shoes. I didn't love the shoes. That being said, I did love everything else. I don't know that, I mean, the judges seem to live for it as well, but I don't know that it necessarily read Ghostship to me. You know, I think I said it read a little circus to me. I feel like she looks a little ringleader-ish to me, you know, but it's a great look for sure.
I honestly think if the pants were a different silhouette and the jacket was just slightly bigger, it would have read Captain of a Ship, and maybe a different silhouette hat. The look I think is devastatingly beautiful, but the silhouettes were just a little off for this challenge. But I think it's very, very cool, but just not. It was a bit of a miss for what they asked for what this challenge was.
It's a beautiful concept. I wish that the shoulders were a little bit bigger to match the hip silhouette. Again, I agree with you about the hat. I felt like the judges gave Saints a dig when they read her for going as part of the staff, but then Dahli didn't get read for going as a boat. Like, she was praised for it, and I was really confused by that. I really enjoy Saints' fun silhouette, since that's how she put it.
But I thought it was really cool how in the workroom she even said, she's like, I guess I'm like really leaning into silhouettes like this time around, and that's kind of what I'm going with and what I'm going for, so I'm going to really lean into that. So you can tell like she's growing while she's there, and like developing, and I love seeing that in competitions.
Oh, perfect. Okay, cool.
The winner.
Jade, Jolie. I love this, and I'm gonna tell you why. I actually really like it. I like that she it looks like she's been dead under the water for a long time, so she has stuff growing on her face and stuff, so she's beautiful but not beautiful, which I felt was very, very on point, especially for this competition. I do wish that she had done more with the bottom. I wish it was like a gown or something.
So what I love about Sailor Mercury this week is that she kind of looks like She looks like a devastating siren.
Mm-hmm.
And like, this is one of my favorite looks that she's done. But
Yeah.
I thought this was a really, really strong week for her. She did really, really well.
I thought she was actually very strong in this challenge. She had minimal props, which I appreciated. You know, she really only had the mic.
And it's glamour.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked it. And I'll say that I kind of wanted her and, ironically, Betty and Sigourney to kind of perform together. Like, I got a very strong, like, consistent siren vibe from them. Like, they were all kind of related to each other.
Glamour look alone, I felt like those three were the strongest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think this is just a competition, a challenge that she was really able to lean into her strengths with. Whereas some of the other ones were maybe a little out of her element, and she got a little lost in the competitors that were really leaning into their elements. But this was something she could really shine and show her strengths in.
And, you know, we're at halftime now, so I'm hoping that, I don't know, there's a luggage she hasn't gotten to yet or something.
A pink bag.
And she just pulls out some, like, competition shattering stuff. And then, you know, she's like, the weak ones are gone. Time to go for this crown. Okay, so this was the favorite.
So this floor show look took my breath away, and then their commentary post floor show was amazing.
It was everything, you know. And I feel like previous seasons we don't really get to see much of their personality come through. And I was thinking about this after we went to the signing, because they were so nice and funny and all of these things at the signing with everybody like around them, right? And I was like, oh, and it almost like took me aback, because I really didn't know what to expect. And as we got in line, I was like, I really don't know how they're going to be, because I was trying to think of, based on the show, what they're like, and I really couldn't figure it out. And it was almost like a pleasant surprise. And I think that's partly why I'm like so like fangirly about them now, because they're just like really funny. And so I like stuff like this where they're actually putting it on camera a little bit more. I feel like this season we get to see a lot more of them shine too. And that's really nice. Like, they're definitely way more comfortable in their own production as well. Maybe not in this outfit, but I just loved it. Like, this was my favorite scene of the whole episode. It has to be a miserable outfit though. They're in that, like, what was that, vinyl looking outfit?
They could like barely look at each other.
Yeah, that outfit can't breathe well, first of all. And then, you know, they're under all the makeup, and then they have this giant headpiece on, and I bet it's just super stiff and uncomfortable and hurts. Anyways, but before they deliver the critiques, they request that the new host of the show step forward, and Jade has to reveal how she's going to use the key. And I really wasn't sure what she was going to do. I was really hoping she didn't use it for herself, because I felt she was so strong in the challenge she didn't need it. I just love everybody's reaction to her saying Betty's name, because I truthfully think nobody expected her to actually do it. And I feel like this is Jade's way of trying to give the Boulets what she thinks that they're asking her to do, like in terms of her voice. So she's like, yeah, I can make a strong choice. Betty, get the fuck in there. And she's not afraid to annihilate somebody on stage if she has to, which I think is actually really awesome. I just hate that they were like, okay, then Jade, you're safe. Bye. When I think she should have just heard the critiques. And she's the only one who didn't get critiqued on stage. Just make her stand there and get critiqued. I don't know why. I don't know. I just feel like it's hard for her to course correct if she doesn't know what she's course correcting.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And the way Swan like flew into the back of that helmet when she said Betty's name. Good for you, Jade. She got everybody's attention all of a sudden. Anyways. And of course, Betty, who I think half expected it, but really truthfully thought Jade was going to be the goody and not do it. But what really cracks me up, though, is she was like, I wouldn't have had any problems at all if it weren't for Jade in this key. And I'm like, you've been having problems every week. So how could you possibly delusionally think that it's just because of this key, which Jade kind of points out in the Cauldron. So Sigourney Beaver wins the challenge as is rightfully deserved. And immediately the celebration does not last long. Yeah. Like seriously, on the stage. Like,
I totally agree with Sigourney's win. She won this week. Her
yeah.
performance was everything. Her look was enough. It.
What bothers me is almost like in the same sentences, Zavaleta says, I can't believe it was you who won when all of us are so strong. But then she's like, oh, but glamour isn't really what I do. That's Sigourney's thing. Well, this is the glamour challenge. So Sigourney won. So this means Hoso, Betty, and Zavaleta are up for extermination. None of them seem to be happy about that or agree with it, which is so weird. There's like this total lack of self-awareness with all three of them, which is weird. Which brings us to the cauldron. Narrated this week by Dahli. Okay, so Dahli is apparently the only sane person left in the competition, which is kind of bizarre. But before we dive into this, so I was pleased to discover in my research that the cauldron has been slowly decorated by the remains of the dead competitors. So we have Astrid's xenomorph tail. We have Formaldehyde's, I believe that's her promo look glove, actually, because it has the syringes on it. Mary Cherry's Nosferatu Beach Party fish headpiece. And I really think they should have featured the slippers. That's my opinion. And they have Coco Kane's pig snout also on the shelf. They go to different areas of the cauldron, which must have been a nightmare for the people filming this. And they never stay in one spot. Everybody's running around, everybody's yelling at each other. It's complete chaos. And it's weird because there's been like a mental breakdown every episode, and this episode appeared to be everyone's. And it was just really hard to watch after a while, with Dahli being the only person who's not only not really participating, but the only one actually trying to put out the fires.
Yeah, it was hard to watch, and it deteriorated really quickly. It was, wow.
I will say though, Jade tries to leave several times. The problem is she keeps getting baited back in by Zavaleta, which is absolutely what Zavaleta wanted to do by trying to get the last word in. A great move for her merchandise on her website, but it's just complete immature, unprofessional, just god awfulness. And to the point that Zavaleta literally dances in circles and calls her names and flips her off, and then Jade retaliates. It's so weird to watch.
Why, if one competitor isn't in the top, why is it Sigourney's fault?
I don't understand that.
What it all comes back to. They didn't like my outfit, but they liked yours, so now I'm going to drag you through the dirt.
It's interesting how big everybody's voices got as soon as Mary Cherry is out. And it's almost
like everyone developed a personality overnight.
Yeah. It's weird. It's like somehow Mary Cherry, in her death, soul split herself into all the other competitors.
Horcruxes.
Yeah. and now they're like emanating Mary Cherry energy against Sigourney, and it's so weird. Okay, so then we have Charlie's Angels. And
this was the best, worst extermination challenge that you could have ever asked anybody for. This is an extermination challenge, but it's not really. This is what you would be doing if you won the crown of Dragula.
It's crazy because this is like a real photo shoot situation. I don't know what Bitter Betty's wig is sprayed with, but man, that thing takes those waves no problem. Yeah, this was interesting to watch. It was fun to kind of watch them all try and pose together.
I really love Zavaleta's face, and like her you could see her anger about the photo shoot, and I'm like, how do you think Sports Illustrated gets their Antarctic bikini pictures? You literally have to do it.
That being said, a lot of the photos were actually really nice at the end of it. You know.
Yeah, but Bitter Betty got lost in almost every single one.
So Bitter Betty ends up being the lucky one to find the dreaded seashell that will summon her murderers in a couple minutes. Did you guys expect this to go any other way?
No, absolutely not.
Oh no, I got the expectation that I was ready for it. Like, this is exactly how I thought it was going to go down.
All right, time for top tweets. So, because of everything else that's going on, there's not much news. But Hoso released a statement, and so we thought we should talk about it. It was a long explanation of her look, along with the full explanation of the story she told on stage, which is all really great. And she stood her ground on thinking that it was her version of glamour, and that she does not need to conform to Western glamour. And that she gave them what they were looking for and all this stuff, which was actually even more disheartening because I'm like, now it's been months. You've been home.
You still haven't reflected on it and grown at all.
Right.
I've seen Eastern glamour, and I'm still going to have to question you. Even
I
if
agree.
you're talking about traditional, like.
I agree. I had that thought too, and then I was like, am I wrong? But I feel like glamour reads as glamour across the board, and the glamour in itself may look different, but it reads as glamour.
I would totally.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that the backstory isn't there. I'm not saying that she didn't think it all the way through. I'm saying that it's not glamour. Not Eastern glamour, not Western glamour, not old world glamour, not new world glamour, not astronaut glamour, not under the sea glamour, not.
Yeah. No one's
wasteland
arguing that it
glamour.
isn't art. Like,
nothing's
it's definitely
glamour.
art.
Yeah. It just was a miss, and
Yes, it's art, not glamour.
Exactly.
and it might be really cool if it were a different challenge.
I hope this isn't the side we see of her for the rest of the competition.
That's what I'm worried about. Okay, getting into the scoreboard. As always, these are the competitors we started with, and here's who we have left. Bitter Betty has been swept out to sea and is now come in 7th place in the competition. Up for Extermination, Zavaleta has the most polarizing stats, right? She's one of the front runners, but now she's been up for Extermination the most out of everybody. She's been up there 2 times, while Saint, Jade, Sigourney, and Hoso have all only had to go 1 time. And going off that for challenge wins, like I said, Zavaleta also has a challenge win. She is one of the front runners, and she shares that with Saint, Dahli, and now Sigourney Beaver, who has now entered the board with a challenge win. This week's episode is Hairy Monsters, where the competitors have to create looks based on extremely hairy creatures. But I'm excited to see what happens this week. I think there will be a decrease in the drama. We're weeding out some of the toxic people, right? Well, with that being said, as always,
Thank you for watching highlights.
And we'll see you next time.